Subscribe now because stories like this aren't meant to fade away. They stay with us long after the video ends. There's a doorway in a house in Nottingham, England, where the paint has been scraped away on both sides. Not from years of use, from desperation, from a woman trying to fit through a space that her own body had outgrown. In 2018, Naomi Walsh filmed herself attempting to enter her bathroom. The video is 37 seconds long. In it, you can hear her breathing, sharp, exhausted, determined. You can see her hands gripping the door frame, knuckles white. And you can see what made the internet stop scrolling. Her legs, swollen beyond recognition, deformed by tumors so large they no longer looked like part of a human body. Each leg weighed over 90 pounds. Together, they carried more weight than most people lift at the gym. She didn't make it through the door. The video ends with her standing there, staring at the threshold, and saying something so quiet the microphone barely picks it up. "I just wanted to pee." That video was seen by 4 million people in 3 days. Most of them left comments. Some were kind, many were not. But none of them understood what it took for Naomi to press upload. Because by then she had already been turned away 5 times by the National Health Service. 5 surgeries denied. 5 times she was told the risk was too high, the outcome uncertain, the resources unavailable. Nobody told her what she was supposed to do instead. Naomi was 32 years old. She had a daughter named Sophie, 16, who no longer invited friends to the house. She had a husband named Daniel, who had left 2 years earlier, saying he couldn't take the stairs anymore. She had neighbors who whispered behind hedges, and a mailman who refused to come to the door. She lived in a ground-floor flat with bars on the windows. Not for security, but because the council had installed them after she stopped opening the curtains. The social worker wrote in her report, "Patient exhibits signs of severe isolation. Recommend mental health evaluation." But no one came. Naomi's condition began when she was 19. A minor injury, a twisted ankle during a night out in town. It swelled. It didn't go down. Within 6 months, her left leg had doubled in size. The doctors called it lymphedema, a chronic condition where the lymphatic system fails to drain fluid properly. They said it was manageable. They said compression garments would help. They said she'd be fine. She wasn't fine. By 23, her right leg started swelling too. By 27, she couldn't work anymore. She had been a receptionist at a dental clinic. She loved that job. She loved the routine, the small talk, the way people smiled at her when they left. But the stairs became impossible. The uniform didn't fit. And one day, a patient asked the dentist, loudly, why that woman was sitting behind the desk. Naomi handed in her resignation the next morning. Daniel tried. He really did. He bought her a wheelchair, even though she hated using it. He built a ramp at the front door. He drove her to every appointment, every consultation, every scan. But something broke in him the day a teenager took a photo of Naomi at the grocery store and posted it online with the caption, "What is this thing?" Daniel saw it because someone tagged him. He didn't say anything to Naomi, but 2 weeks later he told her he needed space. That turned into 2 months, then 6. Then he just stopped coming back. Sophie stayed, but Sophie was 16, and 16-year-olds aren't supposed to be caretakers. She microwaved dinners. She helped her mother to the bathroom. She learned how to wrap compression bandages so tight her hands ached. And she stopped talking about boys, or school, or anything that reminded her there was a world outside that flat. One night, Sophie asked her mother, "Do you think you'll ever be normal again?" Naomi didn't answer, because she didn't know. The tumors weren't just large. They were alive. They grew. They split the skin in places, weeping fluid that smelled like copper and exhaustion. Naomi wrapped them in towels, then bandages, then garbage bags when nothing else worked. She couldn't wear pants. Dresses didn't fit. She lived in oversized sheets tied at the waist. The pain was constant, but it wasn't sharp. It was a slow, crushing ache, like her bones were being pressed into powder. At night, she couldn't lie flat. She slept sitting up in a recliner Daniel had left behind, her legs propped on a stack of pillows that never seemed high enough. She stopped answering the phone. She stopped checking the mail. She stopped looking in mirrors. But in the summer of 2018, something shifted. A television producer reached out. He had seen one of the earlier videos. Naomi had posted a few over the years, mostly to vent, mostly to scream into the void. He wanted to feature her story on a documentary series about rare medical conditions. He said it could help. He said people needed to see what the system was doing to people like her. Naomi almost said no. But Sophie looked at her and said, "Mom, if you don't do something, you're going to die in this flat." So she said yes. The producer brought a crew. They filmed her daily routine, the struggle to stand, the 40-minute process of getting dressed, the way she had to plan every movement 3 steps in advance because her body no longer cooperated. They filmed the doorway. They filmed the recliner. They filmed the pile of denial letters from the NHS, stacked in a drawer like evidence in a trial that would never happen. And then they interviewed her. The producer asked, "What do you want people to know?" Naomi looked directly into the camera and said, "I'm not a monster. I'm not a curiosity. I'm a person who needs help, and no one will help me." The documentary aired in October 2018. Within days, Naomi's inbox exploded. Messages from strangers, some cruel, some offering prayers, some offering money. And one, just one, from a vascular surgeon named Dr. Elias Khoury, working out of a private hospital in London. He wrote, "I've seen your case. I think I can help. But I need to see you in person first." Naomi didn't believe it. She had heard promises before. But Sophie printed the email and taped it to the fridge. Every morning Naomi saw it. And eventually she replied. Dr. Khoury didn't sugarcoat anything. When he examined her, he was silent for a long time. Then he said, "This isn't just lymphedema. There's something else happening here. Something genetic. I need to run tests." The tests took 3 weeks. When the results came back, Dr. Khoury called her into his office and sat across from her with a file in his hands. He said, "You have a mutation in your PI3CA gene. It's rare, very rare. It causes abnormal cell growth in the lymphatic and vascular systems. That's why the swelling never stopped. That's why it kept accelerating." Naomi stared at him. "So it's not my fault?" "It was never your fault." For the first time in over a decade, Naomi cried in front of someone other than Sophie. Dr. Khoury explained that surgery was possible, but dangerous. The tumors were entwined with major blood vessels. One wrong cut could cause a hemorrhage, but leaving them would eventually kill her, slowly, painfully, inevitably. Naomi asked, "What are my chances?" He said, "I don't know, but doing nothing is a 0% chance." She thought about Daniel. She thought about Sophie. She thought about the doorway she couldn't fit through, and the life she used to have and the person she used to be. She said, "When can we start?" The first surgery was scheduled for November 19th, 2018. The night before, Naomi sat in her recliner and recorded a video on her phone. She didn't upload it. She just wanted to say the words out loud to someone, even if that someone was just a camera. She said, "If I don't wake up, I want Sophie to know I tried. I want everyone to know I tried. I'm tired of being afraid. I'm tired of being invisible. Tomorrow I'm going to fight." The next morning, she was wheeled into surgery at 7:00 a.m. Dr. Khoury and his team worked for 11 hours. They removed 55 pounds of tissue from her left leg. When Naomi woke up, the first thing she saw was Sophie's face. The first thing she said was, "Is it gone?" Sophie nodded, but she was crying, because the leg was smaller. But it wasn't normal, and deep down, both of them knew. This was just the beginning. The recovery room smelled like disinfectant and something else Naomi couldn't name. Maybe hope. Maybe just the absence of rot. For 2 weeks she lay in a hospital bed with her left leg elevated, wrapped in bandages so thick they looked like a cast. The nurses changed them twice a day. Every time they peeled the gauze away, Naomi held her breath, waiting to see what was underneath. The swelling was still there, but it was different. Smaller. Human-shaped. Dr. Khoury visited every morning. He never smiled, but his eyes softened when he checked her charts. On the 10th day, he said, "The tissue is healing well. No signs of infection, you did good." Naomi asked, "When can I walk?" He hesitated. "We need to take this slow. The muscles have atrophied. The skin is fragile. We'll start physical therapy in a week." She nodded, but inside she was screaming. "A week? I've waited 13 years. Sophie came every afternoon after school. She brought homework, magazines, chocolate bars Naomi wasn't supposed to eat. They didn't talk much. Sophie would sit in the chair by the window, doing algebra or scrolling through her phone, and Naomi would watch her. Just watch her, memorizing the way her daughter's face looked when she thought no one was paying attention. One day Sophie looked up and caught her staring. "What?" Sophie asked. "Nothing," Naomi said. "I just missed you." Sophie frowned. "I've been here every day." "I know, but I missed you. The version of you that doesn't have to take care of me." Sophie didn't respond. She went back to her phone, but Naomi saw her wipe her eyes. Daniel didn't visit. Naomi didn't expect him to. But on the 15th day, he sent a text. "Heard about the surgery. Glad you're okay." That was it. 4 words. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement of the 2 years he'd been gone, or the years before that when he was physically present but emotionally somewhere else. Naomi deleted the message. Then she blocked his number. Sophie asked why, and Naomi said, "Because I'm done waiting for people who don't wait for me." Physical therapy began 3 weeks post-op. The therapist's name was Anjali, a woman in her 40s with strong hands and a no-nonsense attitude. She didn't treat Naomi like a victim. She treated her like an athlete in recovery. "Your body has forgotten how to walk correctly," Anjali said. "We're going to teach it again." The first session, Naomi managed 5 steps with a walker. Her left leg trembled with every movement, the muscles firing in unfamiliar patterns. Sweat poured down her face. Her breath came in gasps, but she didn't stop. Anjali said, "That's enough for today." Naomi said, "No, 5 more." She took 6, but progress was slow, painfully, maddeningly slow. Some days Naomi could walk the length of the hallway. Other days her legs swelled so badly she couldn't get out of bed. The skin split open in places, weeping clear fluid that stained the bandages pink. Dr. Curry assured her this was normal. The lymphatic system was damaged. It would take time to stabilize. Naomi asked, "How much time?" He didn't answer. By January 2019, Naomi was home. The flat looked different. Sophie had cleaned everything. The recliner was gone, replaced with a proper bed. The doorway to the bathroom had been widened by a carpenter the documentary producer had hired, using funds from a GoFundMe campaign Naomi hadn't known existed. People had donated. Strangers. Hundreds of them. The campaign raised £43,000. Some left messages. "You deserve better, don't give up." "My sister had lymphedema." "I understand." Naomi read every single one, and then she cried for an hour straight. But the relief didn't last long. 3 months after the first surgery, her left leg began swelling again. Not as badly as before, but enough. Enough to notice. Enough to panic. Dr. Curry ordered scans. When the results came back, he called her into his office and said, "The lymphatic vessels are collapsing. We removed the bulk of the diseased tissue, but the underlying system is still compromised. The PIK3CA mutation is still active." Naomi's voice was flat. "So it's coming back?" "Not exactly, but we need to operate again, sooner rather than later." The second surgery was scheduled for April 2019. This time they focused on the right leg. Dr. Curry warned her, the right leg was worse. More vascular involvement, higher risk of complications. Naomi signed the consent forms without reading them. She had stopped caring about risk. Risk was a luxury for people who had options. The second surgery lasted 14 hours. Naomi lost 3 pints of blood. She woke up in the ICU with a breathing tube down her throat and a nurse holding her hand. The nurse's name was Pauline. She was older, with gray hair and kind eyes. Pauline leaned close and whispered, "You're alive. You made it." Naomi tried to nod, but the tube made it impossible, so she squeezed Pauline's hand instead. Recovery was harder this time. The pain was sharper. The nausea constant. The physical therapy sessions felt like torture. Anjali pushed her anyway. "You're stronger than you think," Anjali said. Naomi wanted to believe her. But some days she wasn't sure. Sophie started acting out. She skipped school. She came home late, smelling like cigarettes. One night, Naomi found her sitting on the bathroom floor, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. "What's wrong?" Naomi asked, lowering herself onto the floor beside her. Something that took 5 full minutes and left her gasping. Sophie shook her head. "I can't do this anymore." "Do what?" "This. All of this. Watching you suffer. Pretending everything's going to be okay. I'm so fucking tired, Mom." Naomi didn't scold her for cursing. She just pulled Sophie close and held her while they both cried on the cold tile floor. Later, Naomi called a family therapist. The first session, Sophie refused to talk. The second session, she screamed. The third session, she finally said what she'd been holding in for years. "I'm angry at you." Naomi went still. "Why?" "Because you gave up. For years you just sat in that stupid chair and gave up. And I had to watch. I had to take care of you. I had to be the adult. And I'm 16. I'm supposed to be worried about exams and boys and whether I'm pretty enough. But instead I'm worried about whether my mom is going to die." The therapist asked Naomi how she felt hearing that. Naomi said, "She's right." Sophie looked up, surprised. Naomi continued, "I did give up. For a long time. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to carry that. But I'm not giving up anymore." Sophie's voice cracked. "Promise?" "I promise." By the summer of 2019, Naomi could walk unaided for short distances. She still used a cane. Her legs were still swollen, much smaller than before but not normal. They never would be. Dr. Khoury explained that she would need compression garments for the rest of her life, daily physiotherapy, careful monitoring for infections. "This is as good as it gets," he said. "I'm sorry." Naomi nodded. She wasn't angry. She was grateful. Because as good as it gets meant she could walk to the corner shop. She could stand in the kitchen and make tea. She could hug Sophie without needing help to stand up first. But then October came, and with it, another complication. Naomi woke up one morning with a fever. Her left leg was hot to the touch, the skin angry red. She called Dr. Khoury's office. They told her to come in immediately. The diagnosis was cellulitis, a bacterial infection spreading through the damaged tissue. It required IV antibiotics and another hospital stay. 2 weeks this time. Dr. Khoury said, "Your immune system is compromised. The surgeries, the mutation, the chronic inflammation, it's all taking a toll. You're going to be vulnerable to infections for the foreseeable future." Naomi asked, "Meaning what?" "Meaning you need to be careful. Very careful. Any cut, any scrape, any blister can become a serious problem." She laughed bitterly. "So I survived the surgeries just to live in a bubble?" "You survived the surgeries so you could live, period. Don't forget that." The infection cleared. Naomi went home. But something had shifted. She started looking at her life differently. She had spent 13 years defined by her condition. Even now, post-surgery, she was still defined by it. The swelling was smaller, but it was still there. The pain was manageable, but it was still constant. She wasn't dying anymore, but she wasn't living either. One night, she sat down at her laptop and opened a blank document. She started typing. She didn't know what she was writing at first, just words, thoughts, feelings she'd never said out loud. By 3 a.m., she had written 8,000 words, a memoir, the beginning of one anyway. She titled it, "The Space I Take Up." Sophie read it the next day. When she finished, she looked at Naomi and said, "Mom, this is really good." "You think so?" Yeah, you should finish it. So she did. It took her 6 months. She wrote in the early mornings before Sophie woke up, when the flat was quiet and the world felt small enough to hold. She wrote about the doorway, the recliner, the stairs, the surgeries, Daniel, Sophie, Dr. Curry, Pauline, Angeli. All of it. When it was done, she sent it to a literary agent the documentary producer had recommended. The agent replied 3 weeks later, "This is powerful. Let's talk." The book was published in June 2021. It didn't become a bestseller, but it sold enough. And more importantly, it reached people. Naomi started getting emails, dozens of them, from people with lymphedema, with rare diseases, with invisible conditions the world didn't understand. One woman wrote, "I've been hiding for 7 years. Your book made me open the curtains again." That's when Naomi realized she had found her purpose, not in being cured, but in being seen, and in helping others feel seen too. But in December 2021, 3 years after the first surgery, Naomi noticed something. Her right leg was swelling again, not dramatically, but enough. She went to Dr. Curry. He ran tests. He examined her for a long time, and then he said the words she had been dreading. "We need to talk about another surgery." Naomi closed her eyes. "How many more times?" "I don't know. The mutation is aggressive. We can manage it, but we can't cure it. You understand that, right?" She nodded. But inside, something broke, because she had fought so hard. She had endured so much, and it still wasn't enough. The third surgery was scheduled for March 2022. This time, Naomi didn't tell anyone except Sophie. She didn't post about it. She didn't film it. She just went, quietly, and let them cut into her again. The surgery went well. Recovery was standard. But when Naomi woke up, she felt different, emptier, like something essential had been carved out along with the tissue. Sophie noticed. "Mom, are you okay?" Naomi said yes. But she wasn't, because she had started to realize something terrifying. This would never end. She would spend the rest of her life fighting her own body, surgery after surgery, infection after infection, compression, pain, vigilance. There would be no finish line, no victory lap, no moment where she could say, "It's over, I won." Just an endless, exhausting war of attrition. And for the first time since 2018, Naomi wondered if she had the strength to keep fighting. The spring of 2022 was unusually cold. Naomi spent most of it indoors, recovering from the third surgery and trying to convince herself that this time would be different. That this time, the swelling would stay down. That this time, her body would cooperate. It didn't. By June, both legs were swelling again. Not as severely as before the surgeries, but enough to make walking painful, enough to make her wonder what the point of it all had been. Dr. Curry increased her compression therapy. He prescribed new medications, drugs designed to slow abnormal cell growth, originally developed for certain cancers. They made her nauseous. They made her hair thin. They made her feel like she was being slowly poisoned in the name of staying alive. She took them anyway, because what else was there to do? Sophie had started university that fall. She'd chosen a school in Nottingham, close enough to come home on weekends, far enough to have her own life. Naomi was proud of her, terrified for her, guilty about her. "You don't have to stay close because of me," Naomi said one afternoon when Sophie came home to help change bandages. Sophie's jaw tightened. "I'm not." "Sophie, I'm not, Mom. I chose this school because I like it. Stop making everything about you." The words were sharp. They were meant to be, and they worked. Naomi stopped talking. But later that night, she heard Sophie crying in her old bedroom. Naomi stood outside the door, hand raised to knock, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Because Sophie was right. Naomi had made everything about herself, for years. And even now, when she was trying to do the opposite, she was still doing it. So she walked away, and Sophie cried alone. The emails kept coming. People who had read her book, people who had seen the documentary. people who wanted advice, hope, connection. Naomi tried to respond to all of them. Some days she managed 10 or 12. Other days, she could barely manage one. One email stood out. It was from a woman named Clara, living in Manchester. She was 41, recently diagnosed with the same PIK3CA mutation. The swelling in her legs had just started. She was terrified. She wrote, "Does it ever get easier? Please tell me it gets easier." Naomi stared at the screen for 20 minutes before typing a reply. "No. But you get stronger, and that has to be enough." She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she closed the laptop and cried, because she wasn't sure she believed it anymore. In September 2022, Naomi was invited to speak at a medical conference in London. The topic was Living with Rare Diseases, Patient Perspectives. She almost declined. Public speaking wasn't something she'd ever imagined doing. But the organizer was persistent, and eventually Naomi agreed. The conference was held in a sterile hotel ballroom filled with doctors, researchers, and a handful of patients. Naomi wore compression stockings under loose trousers and walked to the podium with her cane. The audience was polite, professional, detached. She began with the doorway. She always began with the doorway. In 2018, I couldn't fit through my own bathroom door. My legs were so swollen, so deformed, that I had become a prisoner in my own home. 5 times, I was told surgery was too risky. 5 times I was told to just manage. But nobody explained how you manage a body that's trying to kill you. The room was silent. She continued, 3 surgeries later, I can walk. I can leave my house. I can hug my daughter without needing help to stand. But I still live with the swelling. I still live with the pain. I still live with the knowledge that this will never truly be over. And I need you, all of you in this room, to understand that when you tell a patient their condition is manageable, what they hear is, your suffering is acceptable. A doctor in the front row shifted uncomfortably. Others looked down at their notes. Naomi didn't stop. I'm not here to make you feel guilty. I'm here to make you understand. Every patient you see is not just a case file. They are someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone who has dreams and plans and a life they're trying to live. And when you give up on them, when you decide the risk is too high or the resources too limited, you're not just making a medical decision. You're making a human one. And that decision has consequences. When she finished, the applause was scattered. Uncomfortable. But afterward, 3 doctors approached her. One of them, a younger man, maybe in his early 30s, said, "Thank you. I needed to hear that." Naomi nodded. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt exhausted. But that night, back in her hotel room, she received an email from the conference organizer. "We've had multiple requests for your contact information. Would you be willing to speak at other events?" Naomi stared at the email for a long time. Then she replied, "Yes." Over the next year, she spoke at 6 more conferences. She was invited to join a patient advocacy group focused on rare genetic disorders. She started a blog, writing about her experiences in real time, the good days, the bad days, the days when she wanted to give up. People responded, not millions, but enough. Enough to make her feel like maybe, just maybe, her suffering had a purpose. But her body kept deteriorating. In early 2023, a new complication emerged. The skin on her legs had become so thin, so fragile that it tore easily. Paper-thin wounds that wouldn't heal. Ulcers that wept constantly. She had to wrap her legs in special bandages every day, coating them in medical-grade honey to promote healing. It was disgusting. It was humiliating. It was unbearable. And it was her life. Dr. Khoury ran more tests. He consulted with specialists in the United States, in Germany, in Australia. Everyone agreed. The PIK3CA mutation was too aggressive. The surgeries had bought her time, but they hadn't stopped the progression. In April 2023, Dr. Khoury sat Naomi down and said, "I think we need to consider a more radical approach." Naomi's stomach dropped. What does that mean? Amputation. The word hung in the air like a blade. Both legs? Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. Possibly. Or we could start with one and see how you respond. The tissue is too damaged to sustain itself. The infections are becoming more frequent, more severe. At a certain point, keeping the limbs becomes more dangerous than removing them. Naomi couldn't breathe. You're saying I've gone through all of this, all the surgeries, all the pain, all the recovery, just to lose my legs anyway? Dr. Khoury's face was pained. I'm saying we're running out of options, and I want you to have a choice before the choice is made for you. Naomi left the office in a daze. She didn't remember the drive home. She didn't remember unlocking the door or sitting down on the couch. She just sat there staring at her legs. These legs that had betrayed her, that had defined her, that had become both her identity and her prison. She thought about the doorway, the recliner, the stairs, the surgeries, the hope, the crushing, relentless weight of it all. And she thought, what if I just stopped? Not suicide. She wasn't suicidal. But what if she just stopped fighting? What if she said no to the amputation, no to more surgeries, no to more medications and more pain and more hope that led nowhere? What if she just let her body do what it was going to do anyway? She sat with that thought for 3 days. She didn't tell Sophie. She didn't tell anyone. She just sat with it, turning it over in her mind like a stone. On the 4th day, Sophie came home unexpectedly. She found Naomi on the couch, still in the same clothes she'd worn for days, the bandages on her legs unchanged. Mum, what the hell? Sophie's voice was sharp with fear. Naomi looked up at her. I'm tired, Sophie. Yeah, I can see that. When's the last time you ate? I don't know. Sophie disappeared into the kitchen. Naomi heard cabinets opening, the microwave beeping. 5 minutes later, Sophie reappeared with a plate of reheated pasta and a glass of water. Eat, Sophie commanded. Naomi obeyed. The food tasted like nothing. Sophie sat down beside her. What did Dr. Khoury say? Naomi hesitated. Then, he wants to amputate. Sophie's face went pale. Both legs? Maybe. He's not sure yet. Sophie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, What do you want? I don't know. I don't know if I can do this anymore. Do what? Live? Fight. I don't know if I can keep fighting. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. So what, you're just going to give up after everything? I'm not giving up, I'm just tired. You think I'm not tired? You think I haven't been tired since I was 14? But I'm still here. I'm still showing up. Because that's what we do, we don't quit. Naomi started crying. I'm not you, Sophie, I'm not that strong. Sophie grabbed her mother's hand. Yes, you are. You walked through fire for years before anyone even tried to help you. You survived surgeries that could have killed you. You wrote a book. You speak to strangers about the worst moments of your life because you think it might help them. You are strong, you're just scared. And that's okay. But don't you dare tell me you're not strong enough. Naomi looked at her daughter, this girl who had grown up too fast, who had sacrificed too much, who was still here, still fighting, still believing. And something shifted. Not hope. Not exactly. But something adjacent to it. A refusal to let the story end this way. Naomi squeezed Sophie's hand. Okay. Okay? Okay, I'll think about it. The amputation. I'll think about it. Sophie exhaled. Thank you. 2 weeks later, Naomi met with Dr. Khoury again. This time, Sophie came with her. Dr. Khoury explained the procedure in detail. The risks, the recovery, the prosthetics. He showed them photos of other patients who had undergone similar surgeries. Some were doing well, some weren't. There are no guarantees, he said. But I believe this gives you the best chance at a functional life. Naomi asked, and if I say no? Then we continue managing the symptoms until we can't anymore, which, given the trajectory, might be another year, maybe 2. And that time will likely be spent in increasing pain, with decreasing mobility and quality of life. Naomi looked at Sophie. Sophie looked back at her. Neither of them said anything. Finally, Naomi turned to Dr. Khoury. If we do this, we start with one leg. I need to know I can handle it before we talk about the second. Dr. Curie nodded. That's reasonable. The surgery was scheduled for July 2023, below-knee amputation of the right leg. The night before the surgery, Naomi sat in her flat and looked around at the life she had rebuilt, the widened doorway, the compression garments hanging in the bathroom, the stack of medical bills on the counter, the framed photo of her and Sophie from Sophie's 18th birthday, both of them smiling, really smiling, for the first time in years. She recorded another video on her phone. This time she uploaded it. She said, "Tomorrow I'm losing part of my body, but I've already lost so much. My marriage, my mobility, years of my life, and I'm still here. I don't know what happens after this. I don't know if I'll regret it, but I know I can't keep living the way I've been living. So I'm choosing something different. I'm choosing to let go of the parts of me that are killing me, even if it means I'll never be whole again. Because maybe wholeness isn't about keeping every piece. Maybe it's about keeping the pieces that let you move forward." She paused. "I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway." The surgery lasted 7 hours. When Naomi woke up, her right leg ended just below the knee. The absence was immediate, physical, undeniable. Sophie was there holding her hand. Naomi looked down at the blanket at the space where her leg used to be and felt nothing. Not relief, not grief, just a strange, hollow calm. She looked at Sophie and said, "It's really gone." Sophie nodded. "Yeah, okay." Naomi closed her eyes. "Okay." But 3 months later, when the phantom pain set in, when her brain kept sending signals to a foot that no longer existed, Naomi realized something Dr. Curie hadn't fully prepared her for. The body remembers everything, even the parts you remove. The prosthetic leg arrived in November 2023. It was pale pink, clinical, impersonal. The prosthetist, a cheerful man named Marcus, who had fitted limbs for over 20 years, explained how it worked. The socket, the alignment, the way she'd need to redistribute her weight. "It'll feel wrong at first," he said. "Your brain will fight it, but eventually, it becomes part of you." Naomi wanted to believe him, but when she strapped it on for the first time and tried to stand, her body screamed in protest. The stump was still tender, the socket pressed into places that hadn't been touched in months. And her left leg, still swollen, still damaged, still holding on, couldn't bear the extra weight. She fell. Marcus caught her. "It's okay," he said. "Everyone falls." But Naomi didn't want to be everyone. She was tired of being a statistic, a case study, a story of resilience that people consumed and then forgot. She was tired of falling. Physical therapy started again, this time with a new therapist named Jamal, who had worked with amputees for a decade. He was patient but firm. He didn't let her quit. 5 more steps, he'd say when she wanted to stop at 3. 1 more minute, when her stump was burning. "You've got this," when she was crying too hard to breathe. By January 2024, Naomi could walk 20 meters with the prosthetic. By March, 50. By May, she walked from her flat to the corner shop and back, half a mile total. It took her 40 minutes. Her left leg swelled so badly afterward that she couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. But she had done it. Sophie visited less frequently now. She had a boyfriend. She was thriving at university. She called twice a week, sent photos of nights out, of study groups, of a life that didn't revolve around hospitals and compression bandages. Naomi was grateful and heartbroken because she wanted Sophie to be free, but she also wanted to matter. One night, Sophie called and said, "Mom, I got an internship in London for the summer." Naomi's chest tightened. "That's amazing, sweetheart. I'll still visit. I promise." "I know. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." But when they hung up, Naomi sat in the dark and wondered if she would be. In June 2024, Dr. Corey called her in for scans. The left leg, the one she still had, was showing signs of accelerated degeneration. The ulcers weren't healing. The swelling was worsening despite maximum compression. Infection risk was climbing. "We need to talk about the second amputation," he said. Naomi had known this was coming, but hearing it out loud still felt like a punch. "When?" she asked. "Soon. Within the next 6 months. Before it becomes an emergency." Naomi scheduled the surgery for September 2024, 2 years and 1 month after the first conversation about amputation. She told Sophie. She told the advocacy group. She posted about it on her blog. The responses were overwhelming. Messages of support, offers of help, people sharing their own stories of loss and adaptation. But one message stood out. It was from Clara, the woman from Manchester who had emailed her 2 years earlier. Clara wrote, "I had my first surgery last month, both legs, below the knee. I was terrified. But I kept thinking about what you said, that you get stronger and that has to be enough. You were right. It's not easier. But I'm still here. And so are you." Naomi read it 3 times. Then she printed it and taped it to her bathroom mirror. The second amputation happened on September 17, 2024. Recovery was faster this time. Naomi knew what to expect. The phantom pain, the grief that came in waves, the strange sense of relief mixed with loss. By December, she had 2 prosthetics. Learning to walk on both was harder than she'd imagined. Her balance was completely different. Her center of gravity had shifted. She fell constantly, but she kept getting up. On New Year's Eve 2024, Sophie came home. They ordered takeout and watched the countdown on television. When midnight struck, Sophie turned to her mother and said, "You did it, Mom. You made it through." Naomi smiled, but she didn't feel triumphant. She felt ongoing, like the story wasn't over, like it would never be over. By spring 2025, Naomi had learned to walk on her prosthetics without a cane for short distances. She still needed compression garments on her stumps. She still dealt with phantom pain, with skin breakdown, with the endless maintenance of a body that required constant attention. But she was walking. She spoke at 14 conferences in 2025. She published a second book, a practical guide for people living with rare diseases and limb loss. It sold better than the first. She started a podcast, interviewing other patients, other survivors, other people who refused to disappear. In June 2025, she was invited to speak at a TED Talk. The title was, "The Body You Get." She stood on that stage, on her 2 prosthetic legs, and she told her story. The doorway, the surgeries, the amputations, the years of suffering that didn't end with a miracle cure. And she said, "People want stories with happy endings. They want to hear that I'm healed, that I'm whole, that everything worked out. But that's not my story. My story is that I lost my legs, that I live with chronic pain, that I will never be the person I was before. And I'm okay with that, because survival doesn't mean going back to who you were. It means becoming someone new, someone who can carry the weight of what happened and still move forward." The applause was thunderous, but Naomi barely heard it, because she was thinking about Sophie, about Clara, about every person who had emailed her, called her, told her that her story mattered. In October 2025, Naomi received a letter. It was from Daniel. After 7 years of silence, he had written to her. The letter was short. "I saw your TED Talk. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I hope you're well." Naomi read it once. Then she put it in a drawer and never opened it again. Because forgiveness wasn't something she owed him, and closure wasn't something she needed from him. She had already closed that chapter herself. Now in December 2025, Naomi lives in a small flat in Nottingham. She still uses compression garments. She still sees Dr. Curry every 3 months. She still deals with infections, with phantom pain, with the daily reality of a body that requires constant negotiation. But she walks. She works. She speaks. She writes. She exists in the world as herself, not as a victim, not as an inspiration, but as a person who survived something terrible and decided that survival was enough. Sophie graduated university with honors. She's working in London now, living her own life. They talk every week, sometimes more. The resentment has faded, replaced by something quieter. Something like respect. Naomi doesn't know what the future holds. More surgeries, probably. More complications. More days when her body reminds her that it will never be easy. But she's here. And that's the point. Not victory, not triumph. Just presence. Just refusal to disappear. The doorway is still wide. She doesn't need it to be anymore. But it's there. A reminder of how far she's come. And how much she's lost. And how both can be true at the same time. If this story stayed with you, write in the comments where you're watching from and what touched you most. Stories like this only keep existing because someone on the other side feels them too.